Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. Today I am going to be reviewing a book that I checked out of the library, not really sure what to expect from it, but I wound up having a very enjoyable time looking at it, and that was Mathematical Impressions by Fomenko. At least I think his name was Anatoly Fomenko. My apologies. I just was thinking of him as Fomenko in my head. So this book is a collection by Fomenko, who is a Russian, or he was a Soviet, now Russian, according to his Wikipedia bio, mathematician specializing in the field of topology, and this was a collection of art he did that related to mathematical concepts. I feel like it's very interesting to have a book on mathematical art put out by someone who is also a top mathematician in their field. I can't think of a whole lot of other examples of that being done. There are people who like doing illustrations of art, or maybe math educators. There's just a lot of, and there can be a lot of overlap between those two fields, but I think it's really interesting to find a mathematician of this level, of this specialization so high in his field, able to put together a book of just really interesting art as well. It kind of shows that he is a multi-talented individual, and I kind of appreciated that. So this is a slightly older book. I believe this was written in the 70s, or it was written in 1980. So it is a little bit older, but I don't think that's going to take away from the enjoyment of the book. The book is set up so there's art on one page, and then there's a page across from it which talks about both the title, kind of the medium, as well as the mathematical concepts, which is all up here at the top, and then also a paragraph explaining what you're supposed to be looking at in the art. So right away, something I noticed is this book does not hold your hand when it comes to explaining what's going on in the picture. You're not going to get any explanation. You are expected to know what's going on, and you are talking to a top topologist in his field. I went to college for mathematics. I enjoy mathematics. I read a lot of mathematics in my free time, but topology is something I may only have a passing, I can't even call it familiarity with it. I did not take a course on it when I was in college, so this is something I already was not super familiar with, and the author just goes in right away and is expecting you to know exactly what he's talking about. There were a lot of sentences in here that I had no idea what was going on. So very quickly, unless you are a highly skilled mathematician or have a lot of advanced specialized training in this field, I would recommend just really skimming this page over here. This page, I realize you can't see what I'm talking about. Skimming this page and really taking the time to look at this page. Sometimes you'll get some information on the mathematical page, the mathematics page, but really I like looking at the pictures in this book, which is rare for me to say because usually I enjoy both the mathematical explanation as well as the art, but in this case, it was very detailed and there was no hand-holding whatsoever. But I don't want that to scare anyone away who might read this book. The art in and of itself is really fantastic. It's always bizarre, and there's a lot of little strange men. You can kind of see them on the cover on top of these balls right here. And a lot of the work just feels very surreal and it's just weird. That's the only way I can describe it, but in a way that makes you want to keep looking. I also think it's really interesting that he can create these horror, I don't want to say horrific, but they have like an edge of unease to each of these pictures that also are describing these super cool or these really interesting mathematical concepts that admittedly went straight over my head, but it's cool that he was able to combine these and not just in like a textbook diagram. I'm trying to think if I have a math textbook nearby. Here's one. I don't know if this has any illustrations in it, but when I think of like math textbooks, there's not really a whole lot of illustration. Like this is what they look like. This is my abstract algebra textbook. If you get an illustration, it is very straightforward. There's not a lot of fantastical elements. It's just to describe what you're looking at. You're not supposed to really be enjoying it. It's made to impart information and not much else. So that's why I think it's so unique and interesting that he can create these art pieces. Fomenko, the artist, can create these art pieces that explore a mathematical concept without just being these dull, dry textbook illustrations that are just supposed to impart information. They're designed to both impart information, but also be this enjoyable thing to look at, and I think to also see how the theory or what he's talking about on the like math side, that's how I thought of it, the math side and the art side. The math side related to his drawing. There were two that I liked a lot, and these were ones that were a little more easy to understand, weren't complicated at all. They were this one, and this one is set up so, let me just read it. On the front of the structure, encoded in the colored circles, is the number pi, while on the side wall is the number e. Each square represents a digit, exhibited as a square spiral of colored circles. Together, thousands of these squares add up to create a chaotic, variegated carpet. So as you can see, if you actually look, this is pi. We have, I can't show and look. This is, kindergarten teachers have a skill that I don't have, I'm suddenly realizing. 3.1415. So as you can see, you can read this all the way down, and then E, the number E is on this side of the wall. So I thought this was one that the math wasn't too deep. This was one that I actually understood what was going on this side of the page. Some of these other ones use sentences and words I just do not understand. And after doing a quick search of the Wikipedia page, I realized I was probably not going to understand anytime that afternoon, this week, or even this year. It seems like stuff that requires a lot of advanced study to master. But this one I feel like is accessible to anyone who understood high school mathematics. I feel like you didn't need to get too much into the math, the world of math, or advanced mathematics, or you did not need a master's degree or a PhD to understand the math concepts. You can always enjoy the art, but I think some of the other pages are a little less accessible when it comes to the concepts he's trying to communicate. This one felt accessible, so that's why I wanted to show it off. There's another one which is the exact same thing, just from a different perspective. So here's the tower we were looking at right here. And then up here they talk about fractals, which if you've read or watched any of my other videos, I have a whole playlist on my channel devoted to math books, and there's a lot of books on there on fractals because I think they're very enjoyable and easy to look at. So people who might be intimidated by books on mathematics that are just filled with pages of formula can get an easier entry point into the field by having something that's really pleasant and enjoyable to look at, like fractals. So there are fractals, and if you want to know more about fractals, there's many books I've reviewed on it. But there's some fractals up here, which he also discusses. So I thought those two books were really, or those 2 pages were really accessible and well done and made it easy to understand for everybody and was something that everyone could enjoy. So I did really like to call out those pages. All the art is actually enjoyable. Some of this, as I've been saying again and again, is not, I'll say not enjoyable, but a little harder to understand. But I think no one will regret getting this book out of the library or picking up a copy. I don't know if you can purchase this or how hard it is to purchase due to its age, but I think the art is super cool, and I'm so glad that my library had this because this was something that I don't think I would have stumbled across in like your local bookstore. But it was very enjoyable, and I do recommend, and I think it's just a fun kind of fantastical entry to the kind of mathematics that I do not normally touch or read about at all. So I'm glad that I checked it out. If you have any thoughts, comments, suggestions, things you want to rant at me about, please leave it in the comments below. I love to read them. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.